And Eugene, what's your last name?
Filak.
Eugene Filak. So before February 24th, Ukrainian business guy, scientist, and has a software development company. And then when in the early hours of the war, you I guess you had friends in the military. You knew people. One of the biggest needs were these very simple, untechnological things, boots, socks. I remember it seems like 100 years ago, but and the big need for knee pads. All of a sudden, we're learning about all these things we never had to think about. But knee pads, especially for urban warfare, to protect yourself and to keep going. And so you were just trying to raise like to buy a couple dozen knee pads or so.
Actually, I don't remember how many. Maybe it was 100 pairs or something like that.
But your simple request turned into so many people donated. And so for your small request on Facebook, turned into $2 million within 2 months, you and a friend. And was most of that financial support at that time, was it from Ukrainians or from people all over the world?
It is still mostly from Ukrainians, and because people on the West, they try to donate for some medicine, for some humanitarian needs, and it's really important. But we need to give this understanding that this way, it is proper way to do it, but it is like treating.
The great Daria is here. One of the best organizers in Ukraine.
Coffee for you. Do you need some sugar?
No thanks. Bez cukru, bubaska. Also, well, we have celebrities coming in here.
Hello, everyone.
And Oya.
You still need us?
Yes, please. Fantastic. This is actually very fortuitous arrival because we were. Eugene was just telling us about a small simple Facebook post in the beginning of the war turned into now such a great series of connections and initiative. And then here, what I love about being in this place, we're in your place here, Oya, amazing MC6. Right? It's like MI6, but it's a MI6 for creatives and artists and people who love freedom and working to keep that freedom here. And you're an architect and an artist, and Oya has designed this amazing place, which you have to climb 300 steps to reach from the arrival point. And so you really feel, especially,
it's nice CrossFit every day. 3 times a day,
We got to stay fit to be fighting for it. And you feel, this is all, you built this as a refuge, but especially now in time of war, you never probably could have imagined how important a refuge would be and a place for people to recharge. But could you tell us about your vision for this place and especially your vision for this weekend here?
One moment. Vision of all this place. Actually, people help us to see more clear this vision, and it creates step by step. And as architect, I just have good taste, good knowledge how to frame a space, for people without frames.
What?
And I think it's a biggest help me opportunity, biggest ability to develop my space.
Well, and it's when you all were telling me about this weekend, because you've gathered here. In fact, there's so many groups around the world of people trying to help, but you've gathered here, from as far as I can tell, as far as I've seen here, these past 10 months of war, some of the most effective people working to help support the army, support the country in different ways. And you explained, I think you gave me the description, you said 2 purposes. 1, to recharge, to replenish, because everyone's pretty exhausted, and to continue to make good connections, to see how you can be smarter strategically. And I was just in, Dan and I, we were just in Kharkiv last week, in Saltivka, and after these experiences, and sometimes, when our dreams are populated by the sounds of explosions that we've heard, you really need this piece of the Carpathians. But I was speaking with a great street artist in Kharkiv, Hamlet. Dan was interviewing him, and he said he had this mural in the streets of Kharkiv on a broken building, and it said, "Let's be power banks for each other." And then when I came here yesterday, and just the hospitality with the amazing food, the people talking about how they can be more effective, and then we had that amazing music with traditional Ukrainian music, Ohio music, and the dancing, and you see that's the type of joy that can't be killed. That's the free spirit, and so exactly as you set out to achieve, I really feel that here. And what was your this like when you created this place? Did you ever think that it would be such a power bank in such a difficult and terrible time?
I haven't, to be true. I just know that I want to connect here people, and this power bank, it just starts to be from March. During a few months, from 24th of February, he was like really a camp of refugees from here, and this was our opportunity to think what we want to do further. And I think from this time this starts.
This is, and it's the same with your story, Eugene.
We saw that we can be this.
That you can be even a greater recharge.
Don't so. I mean, усвідомити.
Realized.
Truly realize that we can be. It's our mission, like one of our missions.
You see more and more power that you have.
Yeah.
As you started just the simple request for knee pads, and now what is the name of your? Do you have a name for your
group 35?
Okay, that's okay. The group 35.
That's our initiative, and I want to add to what Oля has said. I think that everything what happened here, it is because Oля has good taste for people, and I'm a little bit kidding, but what this war gave us is that a lot of very, very brilliant people who were just doing a simple life, who were living the simple life, they started to act much more actively, and they started to group together. This is actually, I don't know if it is only Ukrainian feature or it is just the feature of all the people, but Ukrainians started these really important initiatives. I don't know, in frames of 1 week, almost the whole society was mobilized. It's really incredible.
And after the experience of the 2014 revolution, something I've only can hear stories about, but I always heard about the amazing civil society. And I think for Americans, we hear civil society and we think of NGOs, corporations and institutions. But here it seems that it's more about people. As you bring people together, put the right people in the same room, and see what happens. But how could you? Is this connected to Maidan in a way, to your revolution of 2014? And keeping in mind that people don't really know about that history. But what is maybe how would you describe what is Ukrainian? What is the Maidan mentality? Is there such a thing?
Look, a lot of people think that Maidan is about Euro integration or something like that. Yes, it is. But the main point of Maidan is that was the revolution of dignity. That people self-organized to build this civil society, as you say, and I don't know. As I told you, I don't know if it is only Ukrainian feature or not, but it is like this. So
this idea of, and that's what I've seen in Ukraine. I would call you have everyone, and the Putin's narrative is about corruption, and people start to believe that. But there's corruption everywhere. But what you don't see is the democracy, which is the genuine self-organizing character of the people. Especially when there's a crisis, I would think maybe that's where, as you said, probably yourselves, have you seen strengths and abilities that you never really realized you had before in this time?
It's hard to say, actually. this is the way we live, you know.
Yeah.
So I think why Putin suffers now, because he didn't understand Ukraine at all. So because he thought that it is like the state built like their regime top bottom, but Ukraine is totally different. Ukraine is built bottom to the top, and we just talked about it a few hours ago that these foundations are the institution which builds the country in Ukraine. So that's why actually our government was not so important during the beginning of the war. So of course they did their job, but 99% of the job was done by such organizations, by simple people. I can tell you about simple civilians who in the occupation north of Kyiv, who organized the resistance groups, and they caused like huge damage to Russian army. Like 3 brigades had to move away. 3 brigades. Can you imagine?
Because of citizens.
Because of the citizens.
Just running to push away the Russians.
Yeah, so they were fighting, they were resisting, they were correcting the Ukrainian artillery, so they did everything with what they could do. Something like this. So that's why Russian army is so frustrated about Ukraine, because like they have got the burning earth under their feet, you know. Like they didn't know what to expect from every corner, you know. So, and this is what Ukrainians are.
I can add a little bit on the mobilization or uniting of the civil society. And Johan mentioned that people who lived simple lives moved to unite and organize. I would also kind of challenge this term and would say that many people lived complex lives, and they still doesn't matter whether their lives were complex or not. They found in their lives the ability to expand their time and their efforts and their energy in order to protect the country, in order to provide for the military support where the state, the government, couldn't act at the very moment, because the government is very rigid structure, and in order to act proactively or really quickly, it takes some time to go through the procedures. And the civil society was able to step in for the time, like few months, for example, at the very beginning, in order to help and provide for those needs that the government could not provide. But what I would say, to add to your question about the additional ability we discovered in ourselves, perhaps that was not the additional ability or something we rediscovered. It was just the understanding, the common ground that we are protecting our land and our sovereignty of our nation. It's not just about the piece of land, it's about the nation itself. And we understand that very much with the background of our history and our ancestors who were going through these challenges for the past over 300 years at least, in relationships with Russia, Russian Empire, everything what was coming from Moscovia. So it's about more this unity or uniting of the civil society in Ukraine was because we had these common values.
And 300 years of the resistance.
Of the resistance and of the experience and understanding better the, I wouldn't say enemy, because that would be a negative. It just understanding the aggressor who is trying to destroy us and who was successful in this with other nations and with other little or larger nations who were incorporated into their state. And yesterday Yaroslav Hrycak was saying that
The professor from Ukrainian Catholic University.
yes, he was saying that there was almost no that there was time by time when Russian territory was expanding and expanding and expanding geographically. They were adding more and more lands to their territory, growing their might in the eyes of their own people. And the propaganda that is being created, it's actually started way long before Putin regime or way long before the Soviet Union disappeared.
There's a long history of going back to the czars of and to the days of Muscovy, of oppression. Could you, Irina, could you say, is the idea of freedom inherent to the idea of being Ukrainian?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, you
Irina.
please,
Sorry.
Any of you, all of you, please answer that.
Yeah.
I think it's
like
ingrained in our blood.
Yeah?
So it's like freedom and dignity. It is actually, I don't know what we inherit. I don't know, in DNA.
I'm not exactly sure how to say about the general public. Because in general we are a mix of everything. We are a mix of our background, the history, the education, the informational resources we consume, and the same propaganda. And even people who we were talking today, people who live now not on the occupied territories, they still might at some point trust to literally propagandist from Russia for some reason, because it's like it's the time when we live. It's the time of informational revolution, and everything is very easily not transformed, but the word
Manipulated?
manipulated. It's very easy to manipulate, even with a person who is well educated. So. Yes, we are a mix of different experiences, and also adding a context where we live, with whom we talk, communicate, where we come. And this event was basically an opportunity for representatives from different organizations from civil society who are already active to come together and see whether we stand on the same. I'm sure on the very basis we are standing on the same level, but however we still have specific knowledge or specific context or point of view from where we look at different questions regarding the organization's productivity or how to operate within the larger context. And that was a good opportunity to discuss and to kind of touch on different topics and see where we are really well. We found a lot of areas where we on the same page.
And
well,
we can collaborate.
Where we can collaborate.
What any other thoughts to offer about this idea of Ukrainian identity and freedom?
So I think that this is in general the main Ukrainian feature, one of the main Ukrainian features at the freedom. This is what I tell, like we inherit, and I totally agree that we are still a product of Soviet Union propaganda and a lot of propaganda. So not all of us are the same. but you can see this small, like the red line through Ukrainian culture. This is their freedom, and there is a huge. This is a beautiful song called "Dikke Pole," the wild field, by the singer Yermak, and there are words like, "Here all power is in human." In people, how to call it? Here all power is in people. So
here all power is in humans.
Is in people. So that's why we are different from Russia. So because there the country is the power. Here all power were in people, and I want to also maybe to highlight that this war for Ukrainians was not a really big surprise. So we saw it because we are close to this border. So and we want to we like told about it earlier, but now we have a possibility to Western people to hear us that it's not the war for Ukraine. I'm sorry, but this is the first big war of autocracies and tyranns against democracy. So it is like we had in 1940s. So Ukraine was not the first. Georgia was the first.
Yeah.
So, and this is the step. If
Georgia
Ukraine,
being a small nation of about 4 million people, south
exactly.
on the other side of the Black Sea.
Yeah.
And in 2008, Russia attacked them.
Yeah. So the Georgian country was attacked by Russia. So, and this was the first sign, the first bell. So, and I'm happy that now the world recognized that this is the big war in Ukraine, but this is not the war for Ukrainians only. If democracy loses here, it will go Taiwan next, and we know a couple of places where it's gonna go, like Finland and so on and so on. So that's it. I don't know.
I know so many of the Americans that have come here to help, or even government officials who were very sad when they were forced to leave in January. But they can come back here, and they say they feel happier here than back in America. Because
it's so touchy.
And it's because here the mission is clear.
Sorry.
I mean, it's beautiful. I agree. And I know people who hate when they have to leave here because they say even in wartime people are happier here, and part of it's a solidarity, part of it's a common purpose. But it is this. I hope maybe that America can, we can all learn how to make our democracy stronger through this extreme test here. But could you? Perhaps each of you, if you can, if you wish, because if you could see if you can come up with a no more than one sentence definition of what civil society is, because we hear that word, but I think Ukrainians know civil society better than anyone, and I think the West has a.
We had to,
You had to show it. Yeah. You were forced into it. In 2014 and now especially. How could you describe to people what is genuine civil society in one sentence, if possible? You can think.
I need time to think about it.
Me too.
Because it's such a popular term bandied about, and United Nations reports and all this, and in Washington. But I think here you understand it the best.
I think that there are a couple of things. First is trust. If you have trust, at least through some group of people, it gives you ability to unite and to do something. The second is, this feeling that I can change something. So Ukrainians have this feeling that yes, we can. So I think that two of these things are the biggest influences, and maybe the third is if there is the threat from outside, it stimulates us to develop. It's like did you ever read Dune book? Dune, this which
I need to. I've many friends who have, but
the movie.
I've seen it. Yeah.
So it's based on the book. and there is a group of people who lived in the desert for a couple of thousands of years, and they had to develop certain abilities. Like it is like Ukrainians. We were occupied for so many years. We resisted for so many centuries that we had to develop this ability of civil society. Something like that.
Trust, the ability to believe that you can change things, that you have agency, and then circumstances that force you to. You can't ignore these problems. Any other additions to that definition?
One more. It's allowing and knowing our traditions.
Knowing and
allowing.
And okay, we saw a lot of that last night because here we are in this very modern space and discussing a very pressing problem, existential threat to everyone's lives here and livelihoods. And yet you took time to have music and traditional dancing.
To have time for this.
And why in wartime? Why did you feel it was important to take that moment to be connected to your culture?
To remember about this and what we will have after when everything will end. We still is with this culture, with these traditions, with these dances, and to share further these traditions.
I think of last night reminded me last Christmas, when Christmas in Ukraine, January 7th, and I went to home with some friends in Stry, mispronounced it, Stry, near Lviv.
Oh, okay, Stry.
And there are many families with a lot of well-known Lviv musicians, and so we went caroling from house to house. In every house you have an elaborate hospitality spread of food and drink and singing songs, and it's such a great ritual that people especially when people cross the ocean to America. After a couple generations, you start to lose these anciently developed rituals, and that, it just seemed like a sad thing. But now I realize why these rituals matter. They get you through the dark winter. But I think back to those days of Christmas in January here in Ukraine, in the darkest moments of the war. Just as I think back to last night. These are the things that give you energy and strength to say we can look forward to this.
Some warmness inside, and to keep, because all this freedom is in our songs. All this our way of life is embroidered in our culture. So.
Embroidered, like as you embroider your shirts.
And not only in shirts, so it is like everywhere. So that's why we keep it, because it gives us ability to remember who we are. Like, only in last century we have the front line of different wars moved through our cities. I don't know how many times, 20 times. So we know what is the war. So, and we still keep this culture. So, and this keeps us remember to who we are.
So, civil society, trust, ability to know you have agency to change. Third, to force into it by circumstances, and fourth, despite everything, holding on to the roots, all the wisdom of previous generations, and. Could you each please say your name and what your profession is or how you define yourself, and then it's just so we have a record of that.
Maybe left to right.
My name is Irina Bilan. I'm a grant manager at Mistetsky Arsenal, a National Art and Culture Museum complex in Kyiv, as well as volunteer at charity fund Group 35.
Thank you.
I'm Olga Sukhan, architect and creator of this space in mountains MC6. And also one of my passions is eco-building materials and eco-architecture and connecting people.
Thanks.
My name is Yevhen Filyak. I'm a former scientist and founder of small IT companies, software development company, and co-founder of the charity fund which helps the defenders of Ukraine. And my biggest, feature is that I try to find people who are good and who are smarter than me, and to join them together.
And I'm Joe Lindsley, American in Ukraine since the pandemic, founder of Ukrainian Freedom News. And here we are talking to you from the beautiful Carpathian Mountains, so a place that has seen many wars before, has seen many great movements of resistance, tucked away in the snow in Oya, in your beautiful retreat here. And I think we'll all leave this place with some great energy to say how we keep going in this fight for victory. But yeah. Thanks, дуже дякую for
Thank
this
you.
conversation
Thank you.
and to help us better define what exactly is at stake. I think this is a great inspiration for the world. So.